Hello and welcome to round 3 of GSC 2012 100% by RCL. I'm Matt and we're at Velopark today. Jan Larsen took pole for the third race in a row, followed by Dave Ellis, and then third was Nigel Lee, fourth went to Neil Askoff, fifth was Nick Ovey, sixth was Gary Kemp, seventh was James Reed, eighth was Adrian Herrera, but he unfortunately missed the start and had to start from pit lane, later getting disqualified for going before the red light said he could. Kramer was 9th, 10th went to Sim Steele, 11th was Matt By, 12th was Andrew Jones, and finally 13th went to the new guy Christian Den Braber. So we're now underway and racing at Velopark. Larsen got a good start and Lee got an even better one, which moved him from third past Ellis into second, and Ovey then went off into third past Ellis as well. Contact between Kramer and Askoff, that put Kramer out the race, and everyone else made it through the first corner safely. There was now a battle between Ellis, Ovey and Reed for third, coming onto the back straight. Reed diving down the inside of Ellis to take fourth away from the Scotsman. Larsen had a decent lead from Lee by the time he completed the first lap, and now Ovey, Reed and Ellis are battling. Well, Ellis is a bit too far back at the minute, but Ovey and Reed are certainly looking at each other going into the first corner. However, Ellis then joined in the fun with Reed as they came into the end of the first sector. Reed taking the inside line going onto the back straight, and then Kemp decided he was going to join in. So we now had a battle for fourth between Reed, Ellis and Kemp. Kemp got a better exit onto the back straight, and Ellis and Reed made it almost 3 wide coming into the back chicane. Kemp took fourth away from Reed, and Ellis, who is now 6th, took 5th from Reed, squeezing his way through at the back chicane. Reed attempted to go back around the outside of Ellis, but there was nowhere for him to go. We now had Jones was battling with Sim Steele for 9th place at the end of the lap. Velopark is probably one of the shortest laps with only a 54 to 55 second lap time for the front runners. Barbara, who was behind these two, then got onto the back of Sim Steele, but Sim Steele was having a look at Andrew Jones going into the first corner, outbraking himself and wisely making sure everyone got through before he attempted the corner. Next up was Andrew Jones on Matt By. This was lap 3 and Jones was looking to take 9th away from Matt By. Once again going into the back chicane, he pulls out and makes a move down the inside. Nicely done. There was also a battle between Askoff and Reed at this point on the same lap, and this was Askoff diving down the inside to take 6th away from James Reed. He couldn't quite make it there, but he did finish the job coming into the final corner. Steele was then on to the back of Braber at the end of lap 3. And that moved him up into 10th position. I think Braber actually let him go there. Braber then dived back down the inside coming into the second or third corner. I'm not sure which one's class out ready because of Sim going a bit too wide. Coming down the back straight, Steele had a look coming into the back chicane. Braber covered the line, but a bit too defensively, and he was the first to fall foul of the tyre bundles in that back chicane. Next up was Nick Ovey, who was challenging with Nigel Lee for second place. Coming into the first corner, he took the position away from Lee on the inside. Lee realising he'd lost that and not fighting too hard for it, Kemp then dived down the inside of Lee as well, which demoted Lee down to fourth. Lee wasn't done and he dived back down the inside and retook third. Once again, Kemp, like the last time he was here, got a better exit onto the back straight than Lee did. And as they come into the chicane, Lee gets it very sideways and there's contact between the two, giving Ellis the opportunity to get past Kemp and pick up 2 positions in one go. That took him up to third. Kemp looked like he could have a run going up into the first corner. And he was passed at this point. Contact between the two ever so slightly. However, Kemp spins it, which gives Ellis a free run into third, and then Lee, who wasn't too far behind, capitalised on Kemp's mistake to get right up the back of him coming into the back straight. That put him up into fourth position. About 4 or so laps later, and Lee ran very wide in the second corner. And then not long after Lee did that, this was another 6 laps later, he spun again coming into the first corner. And that allowed Ascot through. Askoff was now another car to make a mistake into that first corner, and that allowed Lee to get past him into fifth. Lee then went right on the second corner and Askoff was back through. And now Lee had also got a bit of traction at the previous corner, so it was all over the back of Askoff in the back straight area. Askoff eventually deciding he was coming to pit lane from 5th place. Very long pit lane here in Velopark, you lose almost a lap if you actually make a pit stop. Larson was next to head into pit lane, he was currently leading at this point on lap 23. And then the next car that pitted would be Gary Kemp, who was driving a solid race in 4th place. Then it was Tim Steele who made his way into pit lane from 6th place on lap 24 as well. At this point Ovey and Ellis were the top 2. And then Lee was 3rd. This is Ovey coming into the pits now. There was a bit of query over what sort of strategy everyone was going to use for this race, and so everyone was trying to keep theirs quiet from each other. Lee was the next car into pit lane, pitting from 3rd on lap 26. And then the last of the front runners was Dave Ellis to pit from 1st. Previous order of Larson, Ovey and Ellis would be restored after the stops had finished. Unfortunately though for Askoff, he was not doing too well yet again, and he picked up a pit lane penalty for corner cutting. He was in 5th at this point. This was on lap 27 which he made his penalty. Fast forward about 10 laps and Matt Bye was overtaking Andrew Jones for 8th, coming into the back chicane once again. almost running into tyre bundles, and almost losing it after that. Jones then fought back to retake the position into the final corner, and Bai had to move out of the way to let Lee through to lap him. Next up was Askoff and Steele battling for 7th place. Askoff taking the position coming into the first corner. Ran slightly wide and Steele tried to hang it out around the outside but couldn't quite pull it off. Reed then made his stop from 6th position. This was his final stop of the day on lap 39. One of the few drivers that made it a 2-stop race in the end, which was unfortunate because it cost him a points position. And then Neil Askoff's race got even worse as he smashed into the tyre bundles and ended his race. He was 6th at this point and looking to pick up a point. Larson was another driver to make a 2-stop race. He pitted from 1st position on lap 48. And now we had a good 3 or 4 minutes remaining of the race. Ellis and Ovi were in 1st and 2nd due to Larson's stop. Ellis diving down the inside at the back chicane but couldn't quite make it through. These two were being extremely careful not to run each other off the track at this point due to being teammates. Ovi ran incredibly wide on the 2nd corner, but Ellis decided not to take advantage of it, safer to make the move elsewhere. Back on the back straight, and Ellis had got a better run coming into it, and he moved to the inside to take the position away from Ovi and take the lead with just 2 laps remaining. Ovi thought about retaking the position but couldn't find a way through. And as it came on to lap 52 or 53, Ovi started to drop back from Ellis, which gave Ellis some much needed breathing space. It was then disaster for Steele as he couldn't make his 1-stop strategy work, eventually having to pit on the last lap of the race, which allowed Matt Bai, who managed to make his 1-stop strategy work, come home in 6th position for the 3rd race in a row and take another point. Ellis and Ovi brought home Team RLD's first 1-2 with great pit strategy and a 1-stop each to capitalise over Larson's 2-stop. That was Ellis' 3rd win in a row. Larson brought the car home in 3rd position and lost even more points to Ellis. Larson really needs to convert these poles he's getting into wins at some point. And then the final points paying position went to Gary Kemp, who was 4th. That wraps up the 3rd round at Velopark. Join us next week for yet another street circuit.